Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for this webinar. My name is Peter Atanisovsky, and I lead the AWS Partner Solution Factory program across the Asia Pacific region. I'm really excited to be here today moderating this session. We have a great set of panelists who will be exploring how manufacturing companies are increasingly leveraging new digital technologies to drive faster and better decisions. This digitalization of manufacturing industry technologies and processes is also commonly called the fourth industrial revolution, or Industry 4.0 for short. So in this webinar, we will discuss how disruptive technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the Internet of Things are helping these companies to maintain, reshore, and localize and decentralize their manufacturing operations. You will hear from our panel of industry experts on the future of manufacturing. They'll provide real-world examples of how they're leveraging these new digital technologies to improve quality, maximize availability, enhance safety, and boost security. Let me start with introducing this stellar group of panelists that are joining me today. First up, we have Zoran Angelovsky, IoT Principal Consultant at DS, an AWS partner that's supporting a lot of our customers here in Australia and New Zealand. Welcome, Zoran.
Thank you.
Next, we have Russell Dupuy, Senior Vice President, Global Wetstock and Managing Director at Environmental Monitoring Solutions, an AWS and DS customer. Welcome, Russell.
Thank you, Peter, and welcome everyone.
And finally, Yasser Darban, General Manager Sales at Entech Electronics, managing manufacturing partner of DS and one of the largest OEM electronics and complete products contract manufacturers in Australia since 1986. Welcome, Yasser.
Thanks, Peter, and good day, everyone.
Okay, so let's get stuck into it with our first question. I'm going to continue on from those kind of great introductions where we really shared the extensive experience you all have in the industry. All of you have more than 20 plus years in the manufacturing space. So my first question is, what are some of the major trends that you've seen that are impacting the manufacturing industry today? And Yasser, how about you kick off the answer for us?
Thanks again, Peter. And yeah, basically, manufacturing is about cost, quality, and availability of the supply. And if we assume quality is like the part that definitely need to be there, without it, we are not in discussion at all. So is cost and availability of supply. What we have seen in the past 20 years or 10 years, or specifically in the past 3-4 years since COVID, is the importance of supply chain. I think the big disruption we believe is having access to global supply chain that enables companies to have a better product design and faster time to market, because manufacturing is not an industry which is self-sufficient. I think everything starts with the design. If the designers, whether the product owner or independent designer, they do not know which material is available, which new processes are available, which parts are available or not, or when these parts and material and process can be used, then manufacturing going to fall behind, and that is the gap we are trying to fill in Australia.
Russell, what are your thoughts?
Sure, thanks, Peter. I guess echoing what Yasser has said, from our perspective, the key disruption has been the raw material supply of semiconductors. That's manifested itself in extensive lead times, forcing us to reconsider key component availability. The other key factor, I think, that has been the performance of the Australian dollar. So not only purchasing most of these components, or almost all of them in US dollars, it's been a significant price increase of that. But putting those two together, the third thing that we've seen is shipping globally. Not only has the Forex uplift in shipping affected us, it's the further delays of the first 2 points I mentioned. One is semiconductor and the Forex. And that's led us to having to completely redesign some of our products, fighting for availability of suitable products at an attractive price.
And Zoran, how about you round out the picture from your side?
Well, thanks, Peter. Look, I would say very similarly to what Yasser and Russell have been talking about there. So I guess more recently, the disruption to the component supply industry has really been unprecedented. So for both, we're going through this right now for Russell, where we've had to actually redesign some hardware so that he can actually meet demand. So how we actually deal with that has become highly critical. But also in our own products, so some of our own products we've had to redesign as well, purely because a lot of components have just become unavailable, to what feels like almost overnight. So that's sort of the very much the current trend, but sort of more broadly, I guess. We're talking about a 20-year time period here in terms of some of the trends. I guess I've been around long enough to have seen products go from very much being hardware centric. So they're very simple products that do very specific functions to what they've evolved today, where they're sort of leveraging. They've become highly integrated, and they're leveraging IoT sort of technologies and AI and ML, which are sort of some of the things that we will be talking about today. But we're also seeing the implications of those technologies coming into sort of the product owners in terms of the companies like Russell himself, but also from a manufacturing point of view. So as IoT devices become more ubiquitous, I guess their impact becomes greater, and we start to think about what does it mean for security and how do we manage the security and the risk profile of these devices. And that not only does it start at early in the development phase, but it involves all of those three partners: the manufacturer, the product owner, and obviously us as the developer as well. I think the other aspect that I feel, the other trend that's occurring is that IoT and AI and ML, I guess for the manufacturing industry specifically, it's changing the product mix that they are developing. So they not only have to deal with the component changes that are occurring, but it's also helping them. So as things become more integrated, as they become more sophisticated, they're developing different they're building different products, but at the same time, they're leveraging those products to improve their productivity and efficiency. So I can kind of see that twofold impact to that part of the industry as well.
Russell, you kind of talked about some of the trends in terms of the disruptions that you've actually seen. And so what I'm interested in digging a bit deeper there is, how have you actually adapted to those various waves of disruptions, such as you mentioned raw material and labor shortages and commodity inflation and transportation congestion? Have you kind of adapted to those disruptive trends that you cited earlier?
Good questions, Peter. These are the challenges that we've never faced, referring to the component supply and Forex and those extended lead times. So how we adapted and responded to that was basically had to think very quickly around how we could look at alternate products that were available to plug the immediate gap, because we had product in production. The challenge there was, whilst we could find those products, we were paying a premium, but that would only meet our immediate demand. So then very quickly on top of that, we had to bring forward our next version of that product by 2 years and engage with DS to get along with that, find new components that were readily available at a healthy price, as opposed to some of the price increases we've seen of a factor by 10. So, that introduced cash flow problems for the business that we had to rethink, and have never had those challenges previously. The other challenge that we had was it's the first time in our manufacturing journey that we actually have to prepay for components. And we were talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that impacted cash flow. And a lot of that required forward purchasing of US dollars. So the Forex and the strength of the Australian dollar has gone from 74 down to about 66 cents. So a lot of general management and cash flow financial decisions needed to be made, and made very quickly. Fortunately, we've come through the other side.
Okay, great to hear. Lots of challenges there, but great to hear that you came through the other side. Now, so what about from your perspective? How have you addressed these challenges from your side?
Actually, the challenge is the main challenge is information, which what we realized several years ago as we were designing products in Australia and we were manufacturing. So Entech used to design product until 2016. The more we were pushing on the design, the less sometime we were feeling confident in terms of supply chain and availability. Even though we were manufacturer, we had a lot of uncertainty in terms of material availability, component availability. In 2016, Entech decided to focus purely on supply chain and manufacturing. What we identified in Australia and New Zealand was that there are a lot of great design houses, expert in the design space. And instead of us competing with them, it's better that we focus on a step up our information gathering. What I mean by information gathering is the material availability, is to identify alternative sources of material. It doesn't need to be in Australia. It can be in China, in US, in Singapore, Malaysia, Asia, anywhere. We spent, I would say, the last 7 years of our operation to just enhance our the access to information in the supply chain, to build new relationship, to connect to the new sources of supply. That is one major approach in our operation. The other thing is stepping up our communication. We gather a lot of information. We need to let our client, what I mean by client is not just the product owner, but also great design houses such as Dios, that we are working with them. We need to tell their designer exactly and effectively, very fast, which material is risky, which material is on like 10 weeks of lead time, which one is on 50 weeks of lead time. And we need to pick up the risk in the supply chain and highlight that at the design process to all the experts in Australia and New Zealand that they're designing this new product. So stepping up information gathering in manufacturing supply chain, stepping up in communication, communicating that information with all our partners. And if anyone, I'm not saying that we have like mastered, I think we are in a good position in Australia and New Zealand, but we are still significantly behind what is happening, let's say in Shenzhen or big manufacturing hubs in the world. We are focusing on reducing this gap and respond to the changes which is happening so fast.
Zoran, do you see something similar? Do you see similar types of solutions across your entire client base being addressed to address these challenges?
Yeah, so I think Russell spoke to it, I guess, in terms of the problem and the impact, or the more recent impact, and he described that really well. And I think some of the things that Yasser is talking about there, how they're addressing them, certainly does resonate with us. And it essentially for us and our clients, we're having to dig a bit deeper in terms of how do we de-risk a manufacturing pipeline, and what does that mean? And really fundamentally, it comes down to preparedness, working with both the manufacturer, the suppliers, the product owner, in this case, Russell. And I guess it also really depends on what stage you are of a product. So, Russell had a product that was already in manufacture and it was disrupted. So that's really a sort of a severe impact. It can have a very severe impact when something's in production. Now, you can actually take steps to de-risk things if you start early. So it's really about preparing preparing the design so there's a minimal impact, or minimizing the impact to a manufacturing pipeline. And that really starts early in the piece in terms of the design stage, the component selection and so forth. So, how flexible can we be in the hardware design so that we can use multiple sources or alternative components, and making that as flexible as possible, and working with, I guess, Entech to validate that, to make sure that we do have a broader set of suppliers that can supply components, so that if one is actually not available, you can actually defer to another. Now, that doesn't work in all cases. It really does depend on the design itself. However, there are things that we can actually build into the design to make it more resilient. And then, so it'll go from a category of, yes, there's alternatives and you can have lots of sources and there's no impact to production. You can make a swap very easily, all the way through to there's a critical component, it may be a major processor, and if you need to swap that out, well, that's a massive change. That's a big design change. And I think they're the critical ones. And I think those that at one end of the spectrum, you have multiple sources, they tend to be easier to deal with, but you still need to work closely with your manufacturer. And then the ones that actually have an impact, I think this is where it goes to the cost impact that Russell is seeing. So if you do have a component that is such a critical part, so in terms of what's happening in industry, you may actually need to pre-purchase those things. You may actually need to go out and secure some of that so that you can be sure of your pipeline over the next period, whatever that period may be. And I think that's the cost impact that we are seeing. Now, we are kicking off some new work, and this is sort of the approach that we will be working closely with the NTech folk and with Russell in terms of trying to maximise or de-risk what we choose from a component supply for those devices.
So we talked about, disruptive trends in your supply chain, raw materials, labor. Let's take a look at disruptive technologies. So at the outset, we talked about artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things. So how are those technologies impacting the manufacturing industry, particularly here in Australia? What do we see and how these technologies are being applied, as well as overseas? So let's get your thoughts on that first.
I start with the first buzzword, IoT. I think in 2017, we actually a bit earlier than that, but I guess mainly 2017, we were hearing IoT everywhere. And then we were joining, in medical device, they were talking about IoT, in medtech, in agtech, in every second things that we were building in our factory. It was called IoT because it was connected, As Zoran mentioned, initially, like 15 years ago, everything was hardware-based, but it's become very connected world of hardwares. And then the main disruption, I'm not saying disruption or change, we identified, and NTech invested in that IoT sort of a space, which was across the line in different products that we were making. Our test department changed because now we need to test a lot of different hardware, which it needs to be connected to Sigfox or CAD-M1 or NVIDIA, different wireless platform. So it was the need to be able and expert in testing different hardware for different platform. And that was something that we introduced to both of our factory in Australia and Shenzhen. We needed to be able to test a lot of these hardwares, which they're on like Telstra network, but we do it remotely. And this need to be secure as well, which I think that is the area which Zoran probably has a bit of expertise in that area. So that was one disruption, connecting all the hardware. We need to test all these hardware and make sure that they work in the system. The other technology was image analysis, image processing. We got a couple of new equipment a few years ago, optical inspection, inline optical inspection machine, inline solder paste inspection machine, which these machines increased our production capacity, accuracy, and quality significantly. The machine checks the board, which has hundreds of components, in a matter of seconds. And previously, we had to do this manually. Operator need to check all these components one by one. And then now there's a machine in the line which compare the image of the board in production with the master piece or golden sample and tells us if there is single mistake across few hundred different components fast. It just changed our production quality significantly. Or, there's softwares like Altium, which connects designer or even manufacturer with all the parts supplier, whether the information is validated or not, but it enables the designer to choose the suitable part or get an idea of what is the best suitable part at the time of designing. And these are a smart software which just enhance the speed of the design and reduce the time for design. This Altium is in the electronic space, like MacMaster is another software which is more something like Altium for mechanical part. It's integrated with the CAD and some other software which being used. These are great. You know, we see, like, one of the things that ENTEC is very proud is design for manufacturing. We think there are people that try to bring software to do that job, but we are far behind the reality of being able to design for manufacture just by using a software. But this is a work in progress, and we won't be surprised if in few years we see some advancement in those fields as well.
Russell, what sort of impact do you see this tech having on the manufacturing industry?
Yeah, I'll probably talk a little differently than manufacturing as opposed to Yasser, because we use ENTEC for our manufacturing. So we don't always feel the impact of how they've adopted this technology to our benefit. However, in retail petroleum, what I can say in the production of petroleum, everyone's experimenting with it. No one's cracked the problem yet in terms of using new technology to solve old and new problems in a faster way. What I can say from our perspective, we've been in a research engagement with RMIT coming up to our 3rd year now with their data science department that brought more energy and expertise to see if we could apply AI, deep learning, ML to some of the high definition, high frequency data that the automation we've created with DIAS and ENTEC brings to bear. So we've got a wealth of historical data. However, the big challenge has been over the last 2 years with the disruption of COVID, retail petroleum volumes have been upside down. We've never seen the volume change so substantially. So whilst we have this rich data and we have this new technology, we're applying it to a data model set that we've never seen before, and it's kind of broken. So we're working with applying this technology. We're not quite there, but it's definitely our innovation path. I'd say in the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to be looking at finding and solving the problems for our clients, which is detecting the early onset of a petroleum leak underground in real time as opposed to historically.
Zoran, from DIAS perspective, what do you see? You're a technology leader in this space, particularly in tech. How are you seeing the impact with your clients?
Certainly. I mean, look, I guess we're seeing both AI and IoT sort of really coming to the fore now. So we're certainly getting a lot more interest in clients and wanting to adopt, and as Russell was saying, to experiment and so forth. We're also actually seeing it go out into production and sort of into the field, if I can say that. And a lot of it still comes back down to data, the access to data, and how do you actually leverage that data. And as I was saying earlier, I think Yasser touched on it a little bit, and perhaps in a slightly different way. Both IoT and AI are impacting, I guess, the components that are going through the production floor. So this is what Yasser and the team at ENTEC would need to deal with, but it is also significantly changing the mix of the products. So the type of technology they're having to deal with and test is becoming varied, and it's expanding greatly as well. So Yasser mentioned some of the communications, in terms of LTE and wireless communications that they have to deal with and so forth. But as soon as you add that, I guess that communications, it opens up, as we were talking earlier, the security aspect and how do you deal with that? And really, I think a lot of that, then you start to look at what does the cloud infrastructure look like and how do you leverage that cloud infrastructure. So some of the things that I expect we will be dealing with fairly soon, and we have for some of our own products, but for Russell, so we're looking to scale Russell in terms of the products that he gets out there, and obviously they are IoT connected, so there's things like security certificates that need to get onto the devices. The devices need to be provisioned so that when they go out into the field, they can actually connect, and we know that they're not compromised in any way. Now, how do you make that work when there's EMS involved, when there's the factory involved? And really that's about opening up the cloud infrastructure and leveraging what you can do with that. So, and that I expect as you scale, to make it scalable, would need to be done earlier on in the factory, if not already to a great extent. I would say it is being done right now. Some of the things that we've introduced for Russell, I guess, and some of our other clients, is really the way we deal with our end-of-line test equipment. So this is bringing back to a very specific example, if I can say that. Those devices are all cloud connected. So these are the devices where a product comes off the production floor, and there's a series of tests that you apply to ensure that once it actually gets delivered to the customer, it's operational and it's in a good working state. Well, we actually right now can get a full view of the test results for those products as things are sort of coming off the production floor. In fact, we can take it a step further. We can also simulate on any single or for any single device that has come off the floor. If there's been a problem on that device, we can actually simulate it in our office and identify exactly where in the test process and what part of the circuit was faulty. So much so that we can actually now get an insight into if a device has gone through the first part of the assembly process or through the surface mount machines. If it's gone back and reworked, we can actually see that. We see that in the data, and we don't need the physical device. We can do it in our office in a virtual sense as well. So there's some of the, I guess, specific examples that we've built into the product, but I feel it'll be a lot broader than that soon or in the coming years.
But when it comes to assessing these disruptive technologies and how they can actually make an impact, what goes into that particular assessment, and how are you actually assessing all the different technologies, how they can help you solve your problems? Asa, what's your perspective on that?
You know, we have been looking for this AI and ML benefits in what we are dealing with. We are manufacturing a lot of small projects, a lot of startups, SMEs, that there are clients. We are making batches of 10, 50, 100 of different products. And we are making a lot of product for larger clients, thousands and tens of thousands of different products in production line. Some of the application of AI and ML, we see that maybe for the project, which is like hundreds of thousands of a specific product per day or per week is being manufactured, you can apply some smart to just monitor that consistent manufacturing. But when you're changing the production between a lot of different small projects, we haven't been able to implement such a smart, disruptive, let's say, production scheduling or quality improvement. It's still a bit early for us to confirm any answer on the adoption of this into the realm of electronics contract manufacturing. We are watching the tier 1 contract manufacturer globally also. We don't see them also utilizing it in a way that we are all hoping. We have ideas that how this technology is going to help us. I'm sure a smart companies such as Dios are working on packages or solutions that can be applied in different parts of our production process. And it's going to be disruptive. We have no doubt that it's going to be disruptive. We have no doubt that we want to be the first mover in that space in Australia. And it's not because we want to be great, it's because if we don't do that, we are going to fall behind the global competition. We fall behind a wave of automation probably 10, 15 years ago, which a lot of production moved to some of the low-cost country. NTech doesn't want to be experiencing the same thing. So we are very savvy to find what is applicable first, and we will implement it in our production. Our goal is to share that story with all of our clients, because we are manufacturing products for hundreds of different manufacturers in Australia and New Zealand. if we successfully implement one of these and then we show what we did for other clients, which they're using our service, I think they can do that and it will help the industry. So I don't have the answer how disruptive it is or which direction, but I'm sure it's going to happen and we will move that to that direction very fast.
Yeah, and I think speaking of answers, I think this is where DS can definitely help. And Zoran, how does DS help these companies and clients assess this technology, and how do you help them unlock the value that's actually there and really fast track the unlocking of that value?
Look, that's a really good question. So I guess the webinar today is really around the manufacturing industry, but our approach in terms of how we approach solving technical problems, it's really fairly broad. We can take it from industry to industry, and of course there's always some things that are specific to a particular industry. But when there are quite a few unknowns, and really, I guess the business case may not be well understood, and the technology can be expensive. I guess having development resources work on a problem can also be expensive. So for us, it's really around sort of tailoring approach, identifying a problem, keeping that initial problem and scope narrow, so that I guess we learn, we unpack that problem, and then see how we can apply, whether it be AI, ML, IoT, or any sort of really cloud infrastructure, and take it iteratively. And so get to a point where you solve an initial problem, don't build out a product, to a great extent, develop a proof of concept, and really see whether that's got legs, and then only then commit to the next phase. So it's really working closely with the likes of NTECs, the likes of the EMSs, identifying the problem, going through an ideation process, and then narrowing down the scope so that we can pick up something that's tangible and manageable from a cost point of view, but also from a development time point of view as well, sort of keeping it in a short time frame. So that's generally the approach that we would take.
Yeah, great advice there, and I agree. I mean, it's really about showing that proof of value, and that can lead to further expansion to other use cases. So you talked about collaboration. You have all worked together extensively already. So based on that experience, how is this kind of collaboration between partners, suppliers, contractors, changing the industry, and how is it helping? Yasser, how about you kick us off again?
This is the topic that we love it at NTEC. I think we experienced a great success in the past 5-6 years by focusing on a specific task, which was manufacturing and supply chain, and stop getting ourselves involved in something else. We say Australia and New Zealand, we are just like a village if we compare ourselves to Shenzhen in the scale of the manufacturing and design and a lot of things that is happening, or some other parts of the world. Collaboration is the key to success in Australia, around the world, but particularly in Australia, because we are small in terms of population and resources. So we need to work more to each other to achieve the goal. I think the main point is to focus on what we are good at it. And let's say in this case, NTEC is supply chain. We focus on that. And then we should have a good interface with the other partners in our ecosystem that we need to work with each other. That interface is very important, that we can trust and collaborate with each other, and it will enable the collaboration. I think that is the missing link. We all believe in collaboration, and we all believe that we should do it, and it will help us. I think no one has a doubt about it, but the reason that sometimes it's not happening is that interface engagement space. We had a great success. We need to rely as a NTEC, as a manufacturer, we need to rely on the design partners. We need to rely on the quality. We need to let them know everything that they need to know. That design for manufacturing, which we are promoting at NTEC, it is enabling a lot of design houses to refine or like adjust the final steps of the design to ensure the success commercialization of the particular project that they have. We will tell everyone what we don't know, but most of the time we know the person who knows the answer. So we are trying to just keep a lot of contacts in our loop to just achieve the target.
Russell, how's the collaboration been with from your perspective?
Yeah, I think I'll talk specifically to collaborations. I think it's less about AI or technology. For it to be a success, collaboration is the foundation. Selecting the right partner who has the right capability and capacity to do what you want to do. But fundamentally, you need to know what you want to achieve in detail before you go about that. And I think, talking in the context of the partners we have here today, including AWS, we were quite fortunate that, you know, we selected DS, who complemented our weaknesses, brought expertise that we didn't have, but in a really authentic way that we could actually work together and the walls were down. So we could, you know, expose ourselves a little bit to know where we were vulnerable and say, hey, help us out here, hold our hand to this point. And that was helping us get through to manufacturing with NTech. And when you reach that deep level of authentic collaboration, you know, these guys just take care of the stuff for us. And that's where we need to be, because we need to focus on our customer, not pretending we're a contract manufacturer, not pretending we're a development house like DS. So I think finding that real collaboration brings you to market fast. It brings you to market with confidence, with a high quality product, and that satisfies our client, and that's our goal. So I think that's how we see the collaboration piece. And again, that takes the hardware piece. It brings in AWS, who's been a long-standing partner of ours, who does the same thing. They bring us technology that just works, it's ready for market, and makes our job easy, in all fairness.
Yeah, look, I think you've really described well why here at AWS, you know, a lot of our customers, you know, rely on our partners to help them, you know, solve the hard problems, to solve those business challenges by being able to leverage cloud technology. So, and so I'm curious, you know, why did you choose to partner with AWS?
Well, it's a good question, because we did do quite a rigorous assessment at the time, and that's when we started engaging with DS, because they were agnostic and they could put a lot of options on the table. But again, I think it's the important piece in having that AWS partner in your camp. For us, it was the breadth of the AWS IoT core right through to cloud, and we consume about 20 various cloud services with AWS. And we were actually one of the first in APAC to go from edge to cloud in real time with IoT data. That's solving some big world problems. So I think with AWS, it was the technology we adopted were proven, were ready, where others had claims about that we were like not so sure about. I think scalability was absolutely central for us. We wanted to grow our market by very big numbers, and we've done that. The fact that we can do single multi-tenant, where we have a customer who wants to protect their data in certain markets, like say, for instance, China and India, where they don't want it potentially exposed. The security wrapped around that, the fact that AWS has some of the highest standards around, you know, AS 27000 or its equivalent in ISO, were factors. The other factor was around the support that AWS through DS brought to us in actually sponsoring and co-funding some of our research. That was very essential in the early days when we're bootstrapping some of these things. And I guess the fact that you've got, you know, instances around the world, data centers around the world that we can, you know, replicate in a redundancy situation. So for failover, all of those factors were really central. We deal with major oil. You've got to have something that's commercial grade, it's robust, and it's scalable. And that's, I guess, why we chose AWS and continue to do so.
All right, so look, I think that brings us really close to the end of this session. A lot of great information. So maybe as let's close out this discussion, you know, the pace of innovation, which has been a big topic central to our discussion today, you know, continues to move on, to churn on in 2023 and beyond. And so I'm interested to know, you know, what, you know, excites you about the future of, you know, digital transformation, in particular, you know, in the industries that we operate in here, like manufacturing, and what are we going to see next? So Yasser, how about you give us your closing thoughts?
Thanks, Peter. Basically, what is coming next is a big question, which I don't think I have the answer to that. But what we are excited about is some of this technology is enabling us to be more competitive. You know, so there's a belief that, you know, some people say AI and ML and Industry 4.0, Australia will be competitive. Obviously, Australia will be competitive, but every country in the world are investing in this technology, and we don't think they are just waiting for us to adopt something and you know, overtake them. It is exciting race, and every project for us is one data. Every process in our manufacturing for us is one data. We are trying to maximize or increase the number of data that we are collecting. And we believe at Entech, if we do have more projects and more production line, we are opening a new factory in Malaysia in 2024. And let's say if we manage to have one factory in every different location in the world every 2 years, it will enable us to gather a lot of data from different geographic parts of the world, and we can introduce a lot of process, and we can bring these data back to Australia, that Australian companies, such as Dios, again, because they're in this room, with the help of AWS, with the help of a lot of smart and expert people in the country, they can introduce processes that they can revolutionize manufacturing globally. I think what we learned from working with Russell and EMS, we can implement a lot of those learning in a lot of other projects moving on. And we can learn from projects that we are manufacturing in China, bring it back to Australia. We can learn from projects that we manufacture in Malaysia, bring it back to Australia. So next for us is to connect all this data and analyze the data with the help of experts that we have locally, and then introduce something amazing which can be applied everywhere in the world.
Excellent. Lots of opportunity. Russell, what does the future hold for us?
I think for the context of ourselves and our clients, it's unlocking what AI and ML can actually do in terms of critical business decisions, in terms of translating decisions that might take a week, a couple of weeks or a month into days in real time based on live data. That's going to be the, I guess, the land of milk and honey for our clients. But we're not quite there. We're experimenting and iterating on that, but that's going to be transformational.
And Zoran, what's your key takeaway here for the audience?
Key takeaways, I guess, and what are we sort of looking at 2023 and beyond? Look, it's a fantastic statement, or question, I should say. Really, I can't wait for the innovation side of things, because I think really that has, you know, that always has a significant impact, not just on the products that we produce, but I think the likes of the services that Russell can deliver, and even the way, Entech, I guess, put the products together for us. So for us, it's really about our ability to help clients and experiment and test new markets, and how do you innovate in those new markets. And to do that, there are some enablers. So, you know, the techniques for building prototypes, for example, you know, as soon as you pass an initial sort of development board activity where you're kicking off a design, you very quickly want to convert that into something that you can put out into the field. So how do you speed up the prototyping? I think that's where the likes of Entech really come into it. Also, innovation in alternative manufacturing techniques. I mean, 3D printing has sort of, you know, really changed the way we work. But there will be other things that we see as well, other innovations in terms of the actual materials used in components. You know, what does it mean, for example, for the impact of electric vehicles coming onto the market? What does that do to the materials that Entech would need to deal with? You know, how does that actually change their manufacturing process? I mean, earlier on, Yasser spoke to the different types of technologies, whether it's communications, but then there's these big shifts in industry and what the impact there will be. So I'm quite excited to see what happens there. And beyond that, really, it's, there's other things, innovations, and really, I think the list is endless. Like, printed electronics, what does that mean? When you're printing on flexible substrates and so forth, what does that mean for the product mix? What does it mean for the manufacturing process? And how do you deal with that? So really, I think the list is endless in terms of the innovation and where it can go to. So I think all of it excites me, but also it excites me in terms of what products we're going to see that actually come out, and how they actually work, and how we deal with those as well.
Well, that brings us to the end of our session today. Thank you, everyone. Again, thank you to our expert panel. Thank you, Russell, Yasser,
Thank you,
Doran. Really informative discussion, great insights, really great stories and examples you're able to share with us and the audience here. And also thank you to the audience and for your attention. And I hope you have a great day.